Welcome to Just a Dude podcast, where we explore the extraordinary stories of ordinary people. I'm your host, Nathan, and on this show, we dive deep into the lives of individuals who have turned their unique experiences into powerful lessons for all of us. We talk growth, resilience, and the human spirit, showcasing how everyday dudes or dudettes can make extraordinary impacts. So whether you're in your car, at the gym, or just chilling at home, get ready for some real talk, inspiration, and maybe even a few laughs. Let's get into today's conversation. Today, we're privileged to have with us a man whose life story reads like a testament to the power of the human spirit and resilience. Alex Rutland, born with physical challenges that would have deterred many, has instead turned those obstacles into stepping stones for personal growth. Alex's journey took him from the battlefields of Operation Iraqi Freedom and Operation Enduring Freedom as a U.S. Marine Corps veteran, where he honed his discipline and leadership, to becoming a beacon of hope and transformation as a health coach specializing in functional nutrition. Alex not only helps individuals tackle physical ailments like IBS and fibromyalgia, but also navigates them through the complexities of self-worth and self-love, emphasizing communication and resilience. His insatiable thirst for knowledge has led him to draw from the wisdom of countless books and life events, crafting unique, transformative experiences for his clients. But Alex's impact doesn't stop there. Inspired by Norse tradition and the teachings of the Havamal, he has built programs that blend ancient wisdom and contemporary personal development. He's the founder of the Strength and Balance Brotherhood, a monthly gathering for men seeking growth and balance, and he's behind innovative initiatives like an all-inclusive retreat for men, diving into Norse wisdom for modern problem solvers. Additionally, Alex extends his reach with donation-based coaching sessions at events like the Florida Pagan Gathering, showing his commitment to making personal development accessible to all. With his INFJ personality, Alex masterfully combines vision, empathy, and creativity to guide others towards living more meaningful lives, all while continuously pushing the boundaries of his own growth and discovery. Alex Rutland, welcome to Just a Dude podcast. We are thrilled to have you here today to share your story with us.
Thank you, Nathan. I'm thrilled to be here with you. It's a great opportunity, and I love what I've seen about your podcast so far. We align so well when it comes to so much.
Excellent. Yeah, I thank you for that, because when I saw your story, I was just like, boy, I gotta have you on the show, because I think not only am I interested to hear more about you, but I think everybody that listens to the show would love to hear more about what you do too. So do you want to, I know I gave you a little bit of an intro, but do you want to give yourself a little bit of an intro? Tell us about, how you got to where you are today.
Well, for me, a lot of where I am today started out very early. I'm a huge advocate for early learning because I was born with my legs twisted. My mom's womb wasn't big enough to hold me, so I had to be in braces. And my mother actually, I swear she broke her soul with a little baby, having to twist my legs to break down the muscles every time she changed my diapers. So, I mean,
Wow.
there was a time where I didn't know I'd ever walk.
Wow.
The beautiful thing in that part of the story is that my grandmother, loving her youngest grandson the way she did, held me in her lap, read to me so much that by the time I was 18, 19 months old, I was taking the book from her and reading it back.
Well, that's impressive.
So, I'm a huge advocate for the early learning stages and working with kids when I can. But my story really went a lot deeper as I grew up and started, reading things that, a lot of your viewership may be a fan of sports, but as a 7-year-old, I was reading a encyclopedia from the 60s that was talking about how the ancient Roman Colosseum was designed to distract the populace from what the Senate was doing. And my 7-year-old brain looked up and went, Super Bowl.
Right?
So, it's one of those things where I've always been a person that is curious. It's all about, why does this happen? What can I do to help it or help change it? And so you grow up with asthma, which this stage in my life, I understand was probably caused by childhood vaccines, unfortunately, and leg braces and not knowing if I would walk. I never played sports. I read and I still read. I go through on average a half dozen books a week just because I'll have something for my imagination mixed in, but There's times where I'm reading quantum science books along with natural science, studying the metaphysical realms and just going deeper and deeper into all of it at the same time because I want to know more. So
Yeah, just that, like that natural curiosity, right?
yes, yes, yes. 44 years old. I'm just, I have the mentality of a 4-year-old at times because I just want to know why.
Yeah, don't we all?
So instead of saying, "Oh, I'm an adult, I can't do that," I'm like, "No, no, 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 no. Let the kid live. Let's do this."
Right, exactly. So how long were you in the leg braces? When did that turn around for you?
I was almost 8 years old before I got out of them.
Wow. So right there when you're really trying to starting to get into things, being an active kid, you were set back reading books because you probably couldn't do much, and now at 8 years old, you're getting back into life, right?
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
starting a new life almost at that point.
Oh yeah. And at that point, it was a new and different world. I mean, I still walked with a little bit of a limp. I still had a couple of different problems because I wasn't active. I was a very pudgy. My mother would say husky, but I would just say fat
Yeah, that's what
kid.
my mom always called me, husky or big bone, but I know I was just fat.
Right? Same deal. So it was one of those things where because I was the fat little nerd and the thick glasses by the time I was fifth grade, I was picked on and I was just ostracized in a lot of ways where it was just my books became my best friends.
Yeah. But I mean, you took that and you turned it around, right? I mean,
Following 9/11, I joined the Marine Corps. And I think whatever powers that be that my childhood records were sealed because if I didn't tell the story, it wasn't there to be told. So I joined the Marine Corps and it was a lot of time in learning to be a man because I had my mother, my grandmother, my little sister in the house with me. My father took one look at a crippled child in a crib and said, "That's not my son," and walked out.
wow, that's
So,
unfortunate.
it was one of those things where I had to learn to become a man by examples that were outside my family. And there's so much of that in this world right now. And we can get into the depths of the social programming at a later point that have caused this, but there are tons of men that are growing up without fathers that don't have an example.
Yeah, the nuclear family just seems like it's no longer hardly existent at all.
It's been destroyed by a communist agenda within this country, I honestly believe.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I mean, I think we've seen some things where there's incentives to not have a, dual parent family, whereas you don't get those incentives if you're a traditional family.
Right. Yes. And, I mean, Planned Parenthoods are only in the ghettos and, it's,
Yeah, it's unfortunate because they do prey on those that may not have the education or knowledge or wherewithal to make the right decisions. They just take what's in front of them.
yes.
And that's unfortunate.
And growing up with a mom that was working 2 to 3 jobs, just to make sure my crippled grandmother, my baby sister, and I had a life, really impressed upon me that no matter what your challenges are, you rise above.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
so,
that's why I think I loved your story because I could resonate with it so much myself, not trying to turn this on me, but I think you were raised the same way I was. Now, I know I was raised in a dual parent family, but that was the same thing. Always strive to be better. Always make sure, that you give the best effort that you possibly can. Don't, pardon my French, but don't half-ass it. And I think that's something that's probably missing today in today's society where it's like, oh, if you fail, oh, it's okay. And I mean, I realize we learn from our failures probably more than we do from our successes, but the thinking that we could just fail all the time and it's fine. I don't know where that came from, but sorry, I got off
I don't
topic there.
know. No, I understand totally. I don't understand where that came from. I don't understand where today's 20 and 30-year-olds can show up 5 to 10 minutes late for work and be like, "Oh, it's only 5 to 10 minutes." And I'm like, no, I was here a half hour before I was scheduled to be here because I care. And
Yep,
what you're doing
exactly.
shows that you don't, which is going to impact your possibility for promotion, your possibility of even staying employed.
Yeah, exactly. It's totally a different thing. I was in management a few years back and I had a lot of younger employees like that. And they'd just be like, oh, well, I was having a bad day, so I needed 20 minutes in my car to prepare. And I was just like, I understand having a bad day, but give me a call, right?
Yeah,
Tell me, hey, I'm
let
having
me
a bad day.
know.
I need a few minutes. I'm a totally relatable person. I totally understand that people have good days, they have bad days, right? But, common sense says, hey, call your boss and tell them.
Yeah, and learn to compartmentalize and wait till the end of the day. And as you're driving home, put on some death metal if you need to, because your
You're
family's not
right.
going to want to listen to it, but you need a way to decompress.
Absolutely. So, yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to get off topic there, but yeah, so we were talking about you got into the Marine Corps after 9/11, which is funny because I think for any of us that were alive during that time, and I'm just with you, I'm 43, so I'm 1 year behind you, and I know when 9/11 happened, the first thing I did was try to sign up for the Army. But unfortunately, my childhood medical records were not sealed, and I had asthma as a kid. So as you can naturally tell, they said, sorry, we don't want you. I mean, rightfully so, but I think that puts some patriotism, or for those of us that have lived in this country, when 9/11 happened, I don't think younger kids especially weren't around then. They don't realize what that felt like. I mean, that was a huge thing. I don't know about your experience, but I know for me, I remember it like it was yesterday.
Yeah, I that morning I was irritated because I was headed to a dentist appointment and there was no music on the radio, because this is before streaming radio and all that.
Yep.
It's
Yep.
2001. People we're going to be like, what? There was never streaming radio? Yeah, huh?
Yeah, exactly.
So, if you didn't have a CD player or cassette player in your vehicle and you're listening to the radio and there's nothing but talking, I was
Hmm.
irritated with it.
Yeah.
And I got to the dentist appointment, and it was weird because the dentist is standing right in front of me and he's got a drill in his hand. The patient's leaning backwards over the table because there's a TV above the door that I just walked in. He's got a bite block in his mouth. The nurse has a tray in her hand. The spring on the door slammed it pretty much slammed it shut. And when it happened, the tray dropped, the second plane hit, and the world changed.
Wow.
And
Yeah,
in that moment, it was like, that's what hit me.
is that what kind of guided you to join the Marine Corps? Was it 9/11 that kind of pushed you?
It was yes and no, because it was a point in my life where I was 20 years old. I turned 21 in boot camp, and I was in college, but it wasn't the greatest experience. I was about to lose my home. I was, not making enough money to push through, and I had to look at what my options were. And it was, work harder, let go of my schooling and get a full-time job, or, okay, the recruiter says they'll pay for college.
Yep. That's how they get you, right?
Yeah.
Pay for college, maybe a bonus.
Yeah. So you get in there and you don't have time to go to college. I mean, you get out of boot camp, that's hell on earth to begin with. And then that's 3 months for the average Marine. I ended up with double pneumonia and ended up in there
Oh,
for 5.5 months because of
wow.
having to go through recovery time. And so 5.5 months at Parris Island, South Carolina. I do not recommend that place to anybody for any reason.
I have been there to see friends graduate from boot camp, and yeah, I can echo that. And I was not there as long as you were.
So yeah, I mean, and then I hit the fleet, and I spent 2 years based out of Japan and had a great time on the side of Mount Fuji, and just taking the train 2 hours into Tokyo, and had a great weekends and had fun, and then getting deployed. And then in 5 years' time, I say I saw the States about 6 months, because it was 14 month, a 6 month, a 12 month. That was Iraq. Afghanistan, 14 months, 12 months.
So,
And
how many tours did you do altogether?
5.
Wow, 5
And
in 5 years, huh?
that was
Well, probably less than that, right?
it was just about that.
Wow.
And wow, it just seems like a different world now. But, I don't know how deep you want to get in this, but I mean, my time over there taught me that Iraq was what we were told was a lie. It was about the oil fields.
I think a lot of us at the time knew that too, but after seeing 9/11, we still had that in the back of our minds that, oh, this is, we're
Yeah,
getting
well,
retaliation. But then as it went on and on, I think we all figured out that it was probably because of oil.
in Afghanistan, we're chasing bin Laden, who the CIA trained to repel
Right.
the Russians back in the 80s. So
Yep.
he was trained by the best of the best.
Well, yeah, even same thing with Iraq, right? We trained Iraq, gave them weapons,
Yeah.
you know?
And then we get to Afghanistan and yeah, okay, the stories we're chasing bin Laden. What we're doing is actually trying to cover up the CIA operation in the poppy fields.
Yeah. That's
So
crazy.
it opened my eyes to what our government really is. Not what it was founded to be, but what it has become.
Yes. And you know what? I think that's something I talk about quite a bit because I tend to be a little more conservative in my thinking, but I tend to try to be open-minded to every political viewpoint. But the one thing I know for sure is that if it's coming from the government, there's probably no 100% truth coming from them, regardless of which
Without a
level
doubt.
you're at.
Without a
So,
doubt.
I'm not a conspiracy theorist or anything like that, but it's just, if you just open your eyes and just kind of listen to everything going on, it's just all smoke and mirrors to try to get us, to look away from what they're actually doing.
I call myself a conspiracy realist because
Right.
I'm 20 to 0 right now on the people that didn't believe the stories.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's not a conspiracy theory if it comes true.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So yeah, little bit divergent there on talking, but I mean it's a large part of who I am too. So I'm not saying anything different about it than what I have. But yeah, so the Marine Corps taught back to this, taught me to be a man, taught me to have a brotherhood, taught me that there was more to life than just the everyday grind. It was about the people in your life. And I got out of the Corps and lost a lot of that connection. I mean, a lot of us that got out, even though we served together, lost contact with each other because we're living our own stories.
Yep. And I have that similar experience. I was a police officer for 13 years, and that was like a brotherhood, sisterhood of everybody that I worked with because they were the ones that were going to, have your back if something went wrong. But then as soon as I stopped being a cop, those relationships just dwindled.
I lost 2 men the entire time I served, and I've lost 12 since we've got out.
And that seems to be a typical story that I hear.
And it's people don't have the support. They don't have their families don't understand. How can you?
Yeah.
I mean,
Unless you've experienced something like that, you can't. You really can't. I mean, we can tell you stories, right? You and I could probably tell stories about everything that we've seen in our careers that were similar, different but similar.
I mean, you
And
see
people
a
just don't
9-year-old
get it.
pick up an AK-47. I mean, how do you relate that to soccer mom
Yeah,
driving her kids to, to
exactly.
school? I mean, it's not the same world. It's not the same kids. It's something
No,
totally different.
it is. And unless you've been through that, I know people try to understand, but it is really different that if you've not been through those traumatic experiences and stuff that we've seen, and I call them traumatic because I think for most people they would be extremely traumatic.
I mean, buddies would have their family members ship them candy. The kids in Iraq come up and want the candy.
Mm-hmm.
Kids in Afghanistan at the time I were there couldn't be trusted not to shoot you in the back.
I believe it. I believe it. I mean,
It's like
that.
people consider it the same world in much,
Yeah.
but those two, they may both be considered the Middle East, but it's a different mindset
Just
completely.
two different areas, two different cultures, right?
Yes.
And then we're coming in with our culture, which we have a totally different. I mean, really,
We
we
have
probably
how
have the
many
freest
cultures in
culture.
this country? I mean, come on.
Yeah,
I, I,
but
I served with Mexican Americans, Jewish Americans, Italian Americans, Irish Americans. I mean, there's so many subcultures within a one culture of the United States.
yep. But I still think nothing prepares you probably for what you saw in Iraq and then even in Afghanistan. It was just, it's like a whole different world. It's a whole different, like you wonder if you went through the Twilight Zone, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've told people for years I don't recommend their children get in the military whatsoever.
I say the same thing about anybody that wants to be a cop.
Yeah, it's like I do
Same
not
thing.
recommend it. It's not what you think it's going to be. Are there some great things about it? Yes. Are there many other
Absolutely.
things that'll break your heart and possibly your soul if you don't have the right mentality? Also, yes.
Yep. Yeah, it's not something that definitely, if you decided to go into the military, it's definitely not something you should take lightly
No, and
because it's
yeah,
going to change your life forever.
whenever I went in, it was one of those things where I had a couple of different driving factors, and I also had family. Well, I say family, a best friend that I lost in the World Trade Center. So, I mean, it was a catalyst, and I lost 60 pounds in under 2 months to
Wow.
be able to join the Marine Corps.
That that is just absolutely incredible. I mean, you must have been working out 23 hours a day,
Well, here's the thing. You can't work out too much because muscle weighs more than fat.
right?
You have to
Yeah.
there's a lot of time in the sauna, a lot of time in, watching liquid intake and being very careful about what you eat as well. And it was, get down to the last 3 pounds and you're chugging some milk and magnesia or something, trying to push out the last of it to make sure you meet the weight.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of when I was a wrestler in high school and always trying to make weight,
Yeah.
wearing plastic bags on you and running around like a crazy man.
Oh yeah. Yeah, at 5'11", they wanted me at 180 pounds, and they settled for me getting down to 220 to get into boot camp.
Wow. Yeah, I'm shorter than you. I'm 5'5", and I would have never made weight because I was at 185 then, but I was in much better shape than I am now.
Well, that's the funny thing then, and one of the things I promote with my programs, I'm 44 years old. I'm in better shape than when I was 24.
And you know what? That seems to be a new norm now. I don't mean to say it, but it's like some of us that are in our 40s, we're like, man, what the hell did I do in my 20s and 30s? And now I'm like, okay, I start thinking about how I should eat, how I should, what's going into my body, how it's coming out,
Yeah.
everything. So yeah, it's funny for our generation that it seems like I don't know, maybe during our 20s and 30s, we weren't as active. And then we get into we hit, our late 30s, and then we start getting more active because we realize, well, I'm not dead. I'm only going to be 40, you know? So,
Well,
but
last September, my birthday's in October, so it's
mine
mid-September.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, last September, my girlfriend and I were sitting on the back porch in our property in Tennessee and talking, and it's just like she got a download, and she's like, I think we need to go carnivore for a little while. And
How'd that go?
I'm still on it.
Are you?
She eats a few vegetables and stuff, but I've watched my cognitive power just skyrocket because the
Kidding.
inflammation goes down. Doctors in the 80s and 90s tell you don't eat eggs, don't drink milk, don't eat steak, and the truth is, people that have been on cholesterol meds for the last 10 years, the studies are out. Your brain
Mm-hmm.
is 20 to 30% cholesterol. So careful
Yeah. I
with
mean,
careful with those drugs because they're literally affecting your brain. People have Alzheimer's because of those drugs.
yeah. And, I think it's great that you brought that up because I don't think people realize, that your body does need some of this stuff, right? You can't eliminate all of it. And I think it's funny you brought up Alzheimer's because I notice, it's from some of the research I've done, it's almost like a sugar imbalance in the brain. And a lot of places are now calling it type 3 diabetes.
Yeah. I have to, and I have to laugh because a lot of it's the inflammation. A lot of it is not getting the correct cholesterol. I mean, eat your eggs. Eat the yolks runny. It's better for you. There's more vitamins in them.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
And, eat your red meat. I have a butcherbox.com that I go to, and I get grass-fed, grass-finished beef.
Yeah,
And
I've seen advertisements for that. Now I get to ask somebody, so are you enjoying the butcher box?
yes.
Awesome.
Yeah, they
Awesome.
tried for a minute to go where it wasn't all grass-fed, grass-finished, and I found another supplier, and all of a sudden they came back going, "Oh, wait."
Wait, come back. We can do that too. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm a big proponent for red meat, eggs. I love whole milk. It's like a dessert for me. I used to be lactose intolerant. I'm not
Wow.
anymore.
Wow.
If you come through the Marine Corps and get the anthrax shots, which were a series of 6 in the gut, and end up with IBS, fiber's not a good thing for you. Vegetables aren't. And in
Yeah.
general, they a lot of vegetables have a self-protection mechanism involved where it causes micro incisions in your gut lining. I mean, kale, horrible. Spinach, horrible. And people want to eat all these salads and end up with these gut problems.
Yeah, I didn't.
Raspberries have the same thing.
No kidding.
Yes.
Oh, my wife's going to love this episode because she's always, she's had some irritable issues and stuff, and she's always trying to find natural ways to cure it. And so I'm going to have to make sure she watches this episode.
Yeah, well, I'm not a proponent for everybody being carnivore. My girlfriend needs her salads every once in a while and things like that. And I eat a few berries, blackberries, blueberries, things like that. And I have a beer every now and then. But, starches, stay away from them.
Yep.
I mean, when it comes to people who have gluten allergies, no, not really. Your gut's just screwed up. Most breads being GMO'd the way they are now, people shouldn't eat them anyway. I wouldn't feed them to the ducks that I see on the side of the road because it's just not fit for human consumption. I mean, I'm getting into the functional nutrition health coaching part here because, there's still a gap we'll go back to, but whenever during the 80s, there was this Eat Right for Your Blood Type, Dr. Diadamo, I believe it is. And beautiful information, but steeped in the culture of don't eat the red meat, eat a lot of chicken.
Yep. I remember that. I remember in the 80s and I remember specifically with eggs.
Yeah.
If you remember, they went back and forth. Eat eggs, it's fine. It's not going to be a problem. Oh, no, don't eat eggs. Or, oh, yeah, you can eat the egg whites, don't eat the yolks. It's been back and forth for the last 40 years of our lives.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And okay, so eat the chicken. Well, here's the thing: your body needs good fat to break down bad fat. Chicken doesn't have fat.
Right. It's very, very lean.
So eat the steak, eat the ribeye, get that good marbling.
I love a good ribeye.
And cook with things like beef tallow, grass-fed beef tallow, grass-fed ghee. Clarified butter is an amazing thing for so many things. I mean, my girlfriend uses it on her face. She's 55 and she looks like she's younger than me.
Wow. Nice.
So, I mean, my breakfast in the morning is usually butter or ghee and a cup of coffee. And it's the first thing I've ever got some on my hand and I just rub it in. I don't rub it off. I don't wipe it off.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, because it smooths the skin. It's providing the nutrition and the moisturizing to your skin that you're not getting otherwise.
That's pretty cool.
I source what I use very carefully. There's a company out of Tampa called Smell Like a Viking that uses so many good oils for your skin, but I get the beard oil. And
do you?
The smells are amazing, but it's all natural. I mean, there's a list of different oils they use and it's all based in natural things. Like, for men, I tell them, if there's a supplement company to look into, it's Choq, CHOQ.com. They've been number one for me for years now. I mean, I have a lifetime 80% off my subscription because I've used them for so long. So
dedicated, right?
I mean, the Shilajit is pure grade, and it's something that men and women need. It is something that helps regulate hormones in women. It helps with sexual health for men. And then there's Tomcat, which is a Chinese herb that they also have, and it translates to long stick, if that is enough translation for you.
I got it.
So, those two, and then the daily vitamin with them has Shilajit in it because it helps with so many hormonal things. Hormones are out of whack. Any woman that's been on birth controls, hormones have gone up and down and in and out that I've ever talked to.
Yep. Well, and even this, I mean, I'll throw another one on there. My wife was forced to get the COVID shot for her employer. Yeah. And, it was either that or give up your job at the time, and she has had nothing but problems ever since she's had that. Problems with her cycle, problems with her hormones, just everything.
Yeah, well, I'll have to send you a couple of resources. There's ways to detox from it.
Good. Yeah, I definitely would love to have that for her because I know she's been struggling for quite some time now.
So that's a good segue to how I got into health coaching, actually, because
let's talk about it.
quit a job before I would allow them to mandate me having a shot that I couldn't prove was effective or safe.
Right.
So I literally worked for one of the major shipping companies at the time, and they said, and I don't want to get sued, so I'm not going to say which one right now.
No, don't worry.
But like, you have to do this to keep your job. And I said, no, I don't. It's a mandate, which means an opinion.
Right.
It's like,
Yeah.
that's not a law. It's not a regulation. You're making it such within the company,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not going to do it.
Yeah. And that's where they get you in a bad spot too, right? Because you're like, I got to protect my health. I need to feed my family, but where do I go? And I think after the whole COVID thing, I know for sure that I'm not going to take any vaccine that hasn't been tested, tried and true. I worked in healthcare, so I had no choice either. I had to get the vaccine or be gone. And, it was a tough time. We were taking care of my wife's mother. She was she was living with us. We were taking care of her. She basically didn't know who she was, and then had to keep a job and take care of her, take care of my wife. It was, everything came together, but now I'm like, I'm sticking by my convictions. No more needles in the arm unless it's proven. And even then, maybe not.
Next needle I'll have is a new tattoo, but that's getting into a different story.
Yeah, that's kind of the only needle I want.
So yeah, I lost that job, and I had enough in savings where I went, okay, who's got the best health coaching program out there? Who's got the best information for functional nutrition? And it ended up being in 2 different places. I was back in school at 42 years old, 41 years old, whatever it was at that point. And 2 nights a week for 4 hours, I was dedicated to learning as much as I could until I got that certification. And a lesson came home during that time, because as you're getting certified, they say, okay, you need to have 3 or 5 or whatever clients that you help, unpaid or paid, it's up to you, to be certified. And you have to follow this particular regimen. Well, for the health coaching, it was 3 clients, and I offered free coaching. 1 person out of those 3 completed that program, because in people's minds, free means not worth anything. That is the mindset I ran into again and again and again.
It's funny because I just had a guest on a couple of nights ago when we talked about cybersecurity, and that was one of the things she brought forth too, to teach people was nothing is free. But when you get something like what you're offering, right, they're not seeing the value in it, seeing that you're, just because it's offered free, right, you're getting your feet wet, you're getting everything going. But I don't know what it is within people's minds to see if they're working with you, they should know that they should be getting something out of it. That's, sorry to go off on that, but
no,
I just, nothing's free. But then when you have free things, and when I say free, it's, it wasn't free. Really, because you put all your time in it.
Paying for it.
Exactly.
I mean, go back to what we're talking about with COVID, free shots, free nose swabs. Somebody's paying for it.
Yeah.
What's the
we all paid for it. That was all subsidized by the government. So, which AKA us.
The question is, what is the motivation behind that? You have to do critical thinking then. And so many people just went, oh, free donut? Okay. Around here in Florida, it was a small percentage, but they were trying to offer free backpacks to kids who would get the shot.
Really?
Yes. And some of the business owners in the area raised unholy hell and put that to a stop.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I don't know, I don't have the exact numbers, but I know that 20-year-olds are infertile now.
Mm-hmm.
40 and 30-year-olds are having heart attacks.
Yeah. With no heart history whatsoever.
And lung issues and so many problems. So many problems. It was free.
Yeah.
Yeah. For what
Well,
purpose?
and then they fear-mongered us into believing that if we didn't have it, we would die. So, yeah. I mean...
And we have Publix supermarkets here, and they had the arrows on the aisles saying, walk this way, like walking in one direction, it was going to save you.
And we had that too. We had, Giant Eagles here had those arrows and which is the same as like a Publix. And I was just like, does it really matter if two people walk down the same aisle going opposite ways? I mean, especially now we know that the masks didn't make a difference. The social distancing didn't make a difference. It was all made up just to make them feel better. And yet we were all shut down for 2 years just for something that they made a vaccine for, that people still got COVID anyway.
Yeah. I mean, I'm lucky that my governor here in Florida, I mean, people have a lot of problems with DeSantis, but in a lot of different ways, but he is a man that follows logic. And he looked and said, this doesn't make sense. My state's not shutting down. We did for like 2 weeks.
Yeah, and that was it.
And that was the end of that.
And I think my state, Ohio, the Governor DeWine, he was the first one to shut everything down. I was the same thing with you, like you said, with on 9/11, when they shut down here in Ohio. I was at the dentist office, and the dentist office is like, I've been hearing stuff that they're going to shut down the state tonight. And lo and behold, I went home, and sure enough.
Yeah. All for what?
Yeah, nothing. We still ended up the same place we would have been.
Yeah.
Only less healthier now.
So you mentioned in the intro how I helped my client get through trials of fibromyalgia. That was the one client that followed my program.
That was one of your first clients?
That was my first client that completed the program.
Wow.
And not just completed the program, took the things I taught her and kept going afterwards. One of the biggest things I will tell you, if you're fighting anything, is stop fighting. Don't identify with it and stop fighting. And then get in front of a mirror. Look yourself in the eyes and say, I love you. And do it again and again. Because that was where her problem lied, whatever the word is, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
She cursed me. She told me I was crazy. She fought me. And I stayed on the call with her while she did it. And she was in tears. The first time she completed it, she broke down and fell on the floor. Because, the nuclear family is dead in this country in so many ways. Our kids are taught that to follow these celebrities and these ads that say you got to be pretty or strong to do this. And this lady lived in North Carolina in the mountains, and they had a different way of life.
Mm-hmm.
But she'd seen the same programming.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, it's pushed out to us daily. It's pushed out to our kids daily. When you talk about mainstream media, screens, I mean, let's just call it screens, right? Doesn't matter. And you see parents nowadays just put their kids in front of a screen. That's the new babysitter. And that's what they learn from. I think, even though you probably I know you use social media. I use social media too. We use it to promote, our message. But there's so much bad stuff on social media that just drags people down, and so much false information that I kind of agreed with, I think it was Australia that banned kids under 12 or 13 from being on social media. And I think that's a good call, because
I hadn't heard that, but I don't doubt it. I haven't watched the news in so many years. It's not funny.
I don't blame you. I get riled up when I watch the news, or if you've seen, the podcast, I do Just a Dude in the News on Fridays. So, because I love learning what's going on I like seeing what's going on with politics. So I could call, it doesn't matter what side, I could call them out on their BS and, try to say things, but I try to deliver it in a more of a neutral way than what you would see, like on a CNN or something like that that's biased. I admit I'm a little biased. I go a little towards the right, but I try to keep it neutral. I like to have good conversations with people so we can understand each other.
Absolutely. And that's the thing we've lost in this country in so many ways.
Yep.
We could disagree and still be friends.
Absolutely. And I think
it's not a war.
That's the way that you and I were brought up. We probably brought up the same way. That it's like, it's okay. That's what makes this country great, is that we can have two very opposing opinions, but we could still walk away friends at the end of it and maybe agree to disagree. But we don't have to say it's my way or the highway. And I think that's the message that we've seen probably over the last 16 years, is that you're either on one side or you're on the other side. And it's like, no, I'm on no sides. I'm on the side of the people, because the people are what make this country great. And the people are what made this country what it is today. And it's not the politicians. It's not the media. It's not whatever, it's us. It's the just a dudes, just dudes hanging out, talking and doing things. We're the ones that make the country run. We're the ones that, are the future of the country. And if we can't come back together, I'm afraid we might have almost lost it already, you know?
Yeah, I was talking to a client today, and he got off on a different tangent because he's from the Northeast and he grew up with the unions. And,
Hmm.
the one thing we've lost in a big way is that there's not apprenticeships anymore. There's not
No?
people learning the trades. His whole point was the unions, and he's got some good points in that I'll agree with, and some that I didn't necessarily agree with. Excuse me. We've lost the apprenticeship. We've lost young people wanting to learn a trade.
Well, they tell us all now we have to go to college.
Yeah, and I know a guy that literally use the internet to learn enough about working on air conditions to get a job. And if he goes to one he doesn't understand, he pulls up YouTube and figures it out and works on it. So, I mean, there's ways around it, but in so many ways, I mean, I'm a huge proponent of having a brotherhood of people with different skills.
Absolutely.
And one of my goals with that men's group, the Strength and Balance Brotherhood, is to bring it to a certain point where we can then go out into the community and be the next level of big brother. And we go in there, and there's a lesson. I've been using the Way of the Superior Man by David Deida right now because, there's huge principles in it for being a good modern man. And I've been using different law of attraction type works like the Master Key System from Charles Hannell, because I bring men in there and, we sit around and I'm going to introduce myself. Hey, my name's Alex Rutland. I'm a health coach. I'm a public speaker. I'm a natural healer. I'm a Marine Corps veteran. Take whichever one of those resonates with you and let it land. My biggest desire is to have a community of like-minded people together to help each other. My biggest fear is that I'm not enough to do it.
And that's
And
a tough thing
I
because
go
you
around in a
started
circle
something.
and I want each of my people to say those things.
Mm-hmm.
And I grab, maybe it's the first person to my right or first person to my left, I grab their dream. And any wisdom tradition that you can find out there says the power of one is one, but the power of two is 10 or more. So I've got a group of 10, 12, 13, 15 men there. That power is exponential. And we focus on one person's dream for about 15 minutes. I mean, we're sweating, we're crying, we're building up that energy. We're yelling, we're chanting, we spend 15 minutes on that one person's dream, just sending it out to the universe.
That's awesome.
I'm waiting to get the one guy in there that just only thing he wants to do is win the lottery, and he comes back and blesses the whole group because it's donation based. But
Yeah.
that's a little bit of a funny aside there.
Yep.
But it's a 2-hour thing. It's 7 to 9 on the third Thursday of each month.
And where do you usually do this at? Is it different locations or?
My girlfriend has a place in the Village of the Arts here in Bradenton, Florida, and so I use that space.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah. Why not? Right. I'm sure she's probably closed when you're doing it. Right.
Yeah. And then she has different events there. And I mean, the art walks are beautiful things in that neighborhood. And there's a cigar box music festival that's getting ready to happen in the neighborhood. And there's all sorts of good things going on there.
That's cool.
And a restaurant called Cottonmouth Southern Soul Food that the Dave Shiplett's his name, the chef there, has turned into world-class fare, and he brings in all these blues and jazz musicians and all sorts of stuff right there in the neighborhood. He's built a venue in the backyard, and I have my men there and we do this, and a half-hour lesson, and we spend 15 minutes per. I mean, I try to get through everybody. If I don't, I mean, I may go a little long, but it's by consensus. And I've seen lives change. And,
Yeah. So what?
Not everybody's in my area of the world to join this. I am a huge proponent for do it yourself.
Yeah.
Find a YMCA that has or at your church, if that's something you're involved in, that has a room where you can come in there, and maybe you're not somebody like me who wants to teach a lesson, but you want to build that energy, and you understand that energy is exponential when you have a group together.
So why, when you do these men's groups, and quite frankly, we probably don't hear a lot about men's groups in general nowadays.
We don't.
But can you explain why these groups matter?
From my
Just
own
from your
perspective,
experience. Yeah.
yes, absolutely. I learned what it meant to be a part of a brotherhood with the Marine Corps a lot like you did with the police department. And you hit the civilian world, you've got families, you've got jobs, you lose that. You spend all your time at work, driving to or from work, or at a dinner time with a family, or maybe you're good enough you have a date night with a wife every once in a while, but you lose your brotherhood. And when you have this brotherhood, yeah, it's pretty awesome whenever something happens and you've got the skill set right there you can call on. But it's more about the fact that men need to be with men. In the 80s, there was bowling leagues, there was different things. People went to the Moose, they were part of the Masons, they did things like that. It was a men's group. Women did something similar in different areas. We've lost that. And in doing so, one of the main pillars of society that we've lost is community.
Are you talking overall or just between men?
I mean,
It's probably overall, isn't it?
it's truly overall, but I mean,
I could see what you're saying about men, though, because if you think about it, like I know myself, work,
yeah.
always working, always doing something. I got a podcast that, now that I enjoy doing it, something that I think is fun. Don't make any money from it, but I enjoy doing it because I get, stories like you, Alex, coming in here that I would never hear, I've never heard before and probably will never hear again. I hope that's not the truth because then maybe you're getting successful if we're getting more folks like you. But yeah, you definitely don't see men's groups anymore. I mean, I remember when I was younger, going to church, there was always a women's Bible study in church. There was a men's Bible study. It was separated for a reason because we are different. Biologically, we're different. Mentally, we're different. Our hormones are different. So, it makes sense for that. But I think you're absolutely right. I don't know the last time I've been in a big group of men and just sat down and, conversed.
Yeah.
So I think it's a great point.
It's a different world. I mean, my very first one had one man in it besides myself. I mean, and it was only basically because I worked with his wife and she was like, "You're going."
And made him go. But I bet you he enjoyed it, didn't he?
He did when it was over, but I don't want people coming in there that have been forced.
No, you want them to come there on their own free will.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Because that community that we have lost men have stopped being part of a group that is cohesive together. A group of friends, even so many people have like one best friend they talk to maybe, and that's about it. It's not like whenever we were kids in the 80s and, we had a whole neighborhood of friends.
Yep. We'd be out till the street lights came on and that was it. I mean,
and, it's a little bit of a learning curve for some of them because they've been hell, I'm sure Ohio's not much different than the South. Growing up in southern Mississippi, little boys are told you don't cry.
Yep. No, you're absolutely right. That's what we were told.
What emotion was okay to show that nothing else was, that was expected? Anger. Well, how does that work for building relationships?
Not very well.
Okay.
Not at all.
So, a lot of this is getting, without telling them this in many ways, is saying, okay, face your emotions. Let them out. That's how you're going to build your reality, what you want to see in life, is being emotional.
And I know that men your age, or our age, I should say, and older, we were always told, don't show emotions. You've got to be strong. You can't cry. You can't talk about things. And I think that's probably been one of our biggest issues is that we don't talk about these things. And then what happens? They build up inside. We get pissed off. We start getting angry. Heart attack, right? Heart attack, stroke, whatever, because we're just bottling it up. But so with these groups, I mean, obviously you bring guys together, right? Bring men together.
Very diverse backgrounds. I've got business owners and I've got nurses and I've got a restaurateur and I've got all sorts of people that show up. Yeah.
Is there anything when you have these groups with the men, is there certain themes or lessons that you teach within these group settings?
Always there is a lesson on being a better man. And there's usually a lesson that I take from the Norse works that tie into that. The ancient wisdom that shows many of the same traits in different words. And my lessons oftentimes will be a combination of Norse wisdom with how to be a better man and things to do to build your future with the law of attraction. A lot of it's very similar, whether you're talking about being a better man or building your future with the law of attraction, because you have to get clear, you have to be dedicated, and you have to do what sometimes you don't want to do.
And that's the tough part.
And you have to be willing to do the hard thing to get to the easier thing sometimes. Maybe that hard thing is just getting connected to your emotions. That is the biggest thing I see. It's hard emotionally, it's hard mentally, and for some, it's hard physically. And all I can say is, men out there, find a way to connect to those emotional parts of yourself. You love your wife, you love your kids. You get pissed off at a call that a referee made, but are you, connecting? Are you finding a place where you belong? Or are you making one? Because sometimes you're not going to find, I couldn't find a place that did what I wanted to do, so I created it.
So you made it.
Absolutely.
And now you've got people that can join you on your journey, and you could teach them what you learned.
Yes.
Which is great, because now we don't have to start from scratch like you did.
And, I'm glad to hear you had a good upbringing with the church. I was 7 whenever I was told I was going to hell because my parents were divorced. And I was 4 when I was getting my knuckles broken because I was writing with my left hand. I had to find the path that was right for me. And instead of telling me I'm going to go to hell because I'm not a Christian, understand that there's a lot of the things that I follow that are the same as the teachings you follow.
Absolutely.
If you look at the history, Jesus was probably more like 3 people. And he spent time in India and he traveled all over. There's too many years in the Bible where there is nothing written. He's just disappeared. And then he comes back and he can do all these amazing things. There's a good chance he studied with some rishis and some yogis and maybe made it all the way to China. Who knows?
Yeah, and really we don't, because the Bible only documents those things that, according to the religion, that were inspired by God, right? So those were the only things that he wanted to say, but that does not mean that Jesus didn't do other things.
And, to get into a little bit of a different thing here beyond what we've talked about, I've studied religion. I've studied, it was the people that he was born to that killed him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it wasn't outsiders. It wasn't somebody else. It was the people he came to change and show that the way to Christ consciousness is within. It's not a church. It's not a religion created by man. The term church for the Gnostics actually had nothing to do with being inside a building. It was the church within yourself.
Yes, and you know what a lot of people think about when you say church, you start thinking of a building, but according to, just my beliefs in the Bible, that the church is the body of Christ, right? That's you taking it in. That's you being one with the whole idea of Christ and a Christ-like figure. Everybody says church, says, oh, it's the building. It's not the building. It has nothing at all to do with the building. You could meet in a sewer tunnel, and as long as you meet, you're still part of the church.
Yes.
And,
a lot of the Gnostic teachings say that church is within yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a gathering. It's not a group. However, your energy is amplified when you're together.
It is. That's a great point, because if you're not religious and you don't go to church, but whether you go to a Buddhist temple or you go to a Christian, I'm using church here in the wrong way, but you know what I mean? If you practice it, it is always amplified when you're there as opposed to when you're not. And you're absolutely right. The continuation of your belief has to be within inside you.
Yes.
Because if it's not within inside you, then you're just blindly following whatever.
And to touch on what you're saying there, it's not just being inside that building with other people. It is everybody within that space holding the same energy. If it's because mom and dad said you're going to church,
I'm sure your energy is not there.
Well, and in many cases, maybe that energy is opposite of others and it's negating others. It's not helping anyone to force anybody to go somewhere they don't want to be.
And there's one thing that I've always thought about, and I guess, again, I don't want to be in too much of a biblical thing, but there's always one line in the Bible, I forget where it's at, but it basically says you have to work out your own salvation. And as much as we need to bring other people in, the one thing we got to do is worry about ourselves,
Yes.
right? And we have to worry about the spiritual well-being of ourselves. And I think this actually comes into your next lesson about Norse mythology.
Yeah,
right?
well,
Because that plays a good part in your program.
yeah, well, one of my things, there's a couple of them that I repeat continuously, is that Odin, chief of the gods, said, the gods are not here to grant your wishes. They're here to support you when you made a decision on which path you want to follow. And the second part of that is hold on to hope with honor.
I like that.
Hold on to hope with honor. And I can tell you parables about faith and hope, but in this case, it was shortened to basically be, what in Christmas is attributed to Santa Claus, ho, ho, ho. Hold on to hope with honor. Decide what you want. Start on your path. The gods will support you. Decide what you want. Start on your path. Find a like-minded group of people that will support you. I am fully vested in believing that every last one of us has a God particle within us. We are children of God. If you are a child of something, you are what it is, despite the fact we have different names for it.
Yep, exactly. I mean, I just look at it from a logical standpoint, right? Everything, the way that humanity and animal life, everything on this earth, the way that it works, it's too perfect and too combined to not have had some type of divine intervention.
Yes, and we appeared on this planet 250,000 years ago exactly as we are right now. Science says that there was a gene that was spliced and combined that wasn't through evolution, divine intervention, or alien abduction.
Well, sure. Yeah, I mean, I'll give you that one because I just think that there has to be I don't want to say, divine, but definitely a greater mind at work.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the Tablet of Valish, the Sumerian tablets, tell a lot of the stories that are in the Bible before the Bible. There's a full translation of the University of California, Berkeley, I believe it is, that you can get online. But these cuneiform tablets tell the story of Noah as being a child of one of these angels, that he didn't look like everybody else. And there's multiple stories pre-Bible about the floods that happened. A couple of different works I've read actually talk about how the Anunnaki, for lack of a better term, came to this world when it was nothing but energy. It had it codified into math. And they came here to harvest the energy of gold for their own atmosphere because they polluted their planet.
That's interesting.
And there was a subcategory or a secondary category of the Anunnaki that were tasked to harvest this. Only as the planet started coalescing into solid matter, they were getting hurt. They were becoming solid as well. And in doing so, there was a revolt that happened amongst the lower and higher archetypes. And then from there, the powers that be said, okay, let's create our worker bee. We're going to combine our DNA with some of the hominids on this planet. And they tried, and they tried, and they tried, and they tried, and it failed every time. Until one of the Anunnaki females took the seed of a human into herself. And 10 months later, she had a child that she called Adamu, Adam with a U at the end of it. But this is written in these tablets.
And you know what? I've heard many things about that there's other, even, Chinese texts that are older that have some of the same stories.
The Egyptian Book of the Dead is older than the Bible, and yet a lot of those stories are in the Bible.
That's interesting.
There's so much that makes you question so much.
Yeah, and I won't say as a Christian that I've never questioned my faith. Being an academic and being kind of in I work in IT now, I don't want to say that I don't believe it, but there's things that you do question. But I think with any faith, you're going to have some questions.
And it's not that you have the questions is the problem. It's the people who want to hide something that don't want to answer the questions that becomes the problem.
Yep.
They either don't have the information or they just don't believe you're ready to hear it. And I'm a huge proponent for let me be the decision maker on what I'm ready to hear.
I agree with you 100%.
It's, you can make a blanket statement all you want. You can be the government and say everybody's got to do this. Well, it's not a law. It's not a regulation. I still have freedom of speech.
For now, we do. Yeah, I think we might have a better chance of it now than we did a couple of weeks ago, but
I agree. My big thing right now with being the health coach, the functional nutrition is waiting for RFK to get confirmed, because we're one of the only countries in the world that have ads on TV for pharmaceuticals.
Yeah, it drives me nuts because I don't know if you remember when we were kids, if you watch TV, I don't think it was on TV, but magazine ads. You remember seeing cigarettes everywhere and on billboards, and remember Joe Camel and all that. And now I feel like they just replaced cigarettes with pharmaceuticals. And, I did an episode on this, but I said they advertise all this stuff. So what does it do to us as a society, right, that are online all the time as we see it? And then we start thinking to ourselves, you know what, maybe that pain in my hip is this rheumatoid arthritis, so I need to go get this medication. And so I'm going to go talk to my doctor about it. When in reality, if you have a doctor, a normal doctor, you should be talking to them about the pain that you have and making a decision together, or going to someone like yourself, right, in functional medicine and finding a way to naturally deal with it. Because I think that's one of the biggest things that we've had over the last 20, 30 years is that everybody's pushing to suppress symptoms, but nobody's pushing to make us healthier. Nobody's pushing to come up with a cure. It's
right.
always let's
Bingo.
suppress the symptoms.
It's about treating the symptoms. It's not about curing the problem.
Yep. And I mean, I listened to some of RFK's confirmation hearing, and I think it was Elizabeth Warren was saying, you're not going to sue these vaccine companies, are you, if you're, in the human, HHS. And it's like, now you're saying that to try to make him look bad, like he's going to make money off of it. But in the real side, she's taken millions of dollars from big pharma and doesn't want to lose that support. And I think that's the part that, people will say, oh yeah, he's just doing it so he can get money. And it's like, no, he might be, I don't know what his thoughts are, but I truly believe that him being in the health and human services would be a great thing for the country, getting rid of all this extra crap that we put in our food. I mean, think about how much
the water.
Yeah, exactly. Which is funny because
neurotoxin.
Yeah. There was a guy, I forget where it was, but there was a guy who had been reducing, he was a water management person for a state somewhere, and he kept reducing the fluoride that they were putting in the water till it was gone. And then just at the end of last year, he got convicted of it. And I'm like, well, now probably next month, it'll probably be illegal to put it in the water anyway. This guy was probably doing these guys a favor.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's kind of day one from what I've heard about RFK, is getting the fluoride and the ads off of TV.
Yep.
Getting the fluoride out of the water. And then, I mean, I can't wait. But
just getting the ads off of TV will probably make America healthier.
Well,
we won't be thinking that we need medications for everything now.
There's 4 top killers in the U.S. right now. 3 of them, the basis of it is inflammation.
Mm-hmm.
Inflammation. And we have a sugar epidemic in this country. Yeah. Sugar causing inflammation. I have programs for people with type 2 diabetes. People don't want to hear it, but it's a food disease.
It is so
learn to eat correctly and you don't have it anymore.
I hate to say this, but I have family members that have type 2 diabetes, and I'm always saying, you can reduce or even eliminate based on your diet. Doing some weight loss.
I might say something that's going to offend somebody here, so I'm going to put a little statement before it, but pre-diabetes means your kid is fat, not exercising, and eating like shit.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right.
It has nothing to do with a medical problem and everything to do with the parenting.
Yeah, type 1 diabetes, and I think, so we can put this out there for folks that may not know, type 1 diabetes is usually something that you're born with.
Yes.
Right? You can't produce the insulin.
Yes, it is something that has been in some way neutralized within the system. It is a particular enzyme that does not get produced, usually because of some other trauma that's been exhibited from childhood vaccines.
Yep. But then on the other hand, type 2 diabetes is 100% preventable. It's 100% curable just by having a good balanced diet, right?
And, and that's different for everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, number one, turn the food pyramid upside down.
Yep. And you know what? I've heard that a lot lately.
I mean, you need very few, very, very, very few, if any, breads. This stuff is GMO'd to hell and back. I don't care how natural it is, your body does not absorb it well. The grains sprouted and nope, I'm sorry. Grains, we're not birds. Grains are not something our body needs. What do we need? Some people need more meat. Some people need more vegetables. Some people need to have a little bit of fruit thrown in there. It's not the same for any two people, even in the same household.
But yeah, I can tell you that, because if you were to put me on the same diet that you put my wife on, I'd probably die,
right?
Or vice versa,
But I mean, I challenge people to start reading the labels in the grocery store.
My gosh.
We make our own ketchup, because you cannot find any that is not high fructose corn syrup or sugar. Or it's sugar-free and it's got xylitol in it, which actually retards the fat sensors in your body and holds on to fat. So
that's good to know. I probably need to stop eating ketchup or just make my own. Because we naturally in the summer, we have our own garden and grow our own vegetables because we know it's just going to be healthier. We know what's on it. We know the dirt that's in the beds, and it definitely, I love summertime over wintertime for sure.
Yeah, well, I moved to Florida I was living in Missouri delivering mail whenever it was just done. -34 temperature, and I was like, yeah, this is not conducive to me. I got depressed in the last 2 weeks with the cold snap that we had here, because I wanted to see the sun. And you go through months of that where you are, and I'm like, no.
Yeah, I've been talking to my wife and I've been married 20 years this year, and I've been talking to her probably for the last 10, saying we need to move somewhere warmer. But all her family's here, so I guess we're stuck here for a while.
I don't know. I mean, with the whole tariff thing that Trump's got going on, I think travel's going to be cheaper in the near future.
Yeah, it might be. Absolutely. So, Alex, let me ask you about your coaching programs. So, because I think it was a good thing that you talked about how a program that you would design for me, you wouldn't design for someone else. So,
absolutely,
not necessarily. I mean, who knows? It could be the same. But what's your process? How do you what kind of give us an overview of your one-on-one coaching and offerings?
Okay, so step one is for somebody to seek me out. I don't have a whole lot of advertisement out there. I literally go by word of mouth because the results speak for themselves. So you call me and say, hey, so-and-so went through your program. They had great results and I'd like to give it a try. Well, I'm going to stop you right there, because I'm not here for you to try anything.
You're here for us to be successful.
Yes.
And come in with that mindset, or at least get the mindset before we start it.
If your mindset is not there, we're not starting with health.
Yep. So in that 100%. Case, would you start? Would you work with them to get their mindset right?
If they were willing?
Or if they're willing. Yeah, let's say if they're willing.
Are they understanding that is step one? And if yes, then I have a 18-page document. It's like going to a doctor's office. You're going to fill out your entire history. I want to know not just what you eat and when you eat, but how you eat, how you sleep, how you poop, often what form and shape. I mean, all of it. Mm-hmm. Because there's so many different ways to tell issues with health by those main things. If you're on medications, I mean, my first goal is going to be to help you get off of them. So I need to know everything you're on, because everything Big Pharma makes is petroleum based. It's poisoning you while it helps with something else.
So, while it's suppressing that, not the disease, but the symptom, right?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, it's a short-term cure for a long-term problem.
And most of the time, you look at the list of side effects to medications, you're almost bound to get one because there are thousands of them.
My God. I mean, in the commercials, they'll tell you that, there's this list of possible side effects up to and including death.
Yeah. Or like the asthma medications, you see that and it says may cause shortness of breath. And I'm like, isn't that why you're taking it in the first place?
Isn't that what it's supposed to help with?
Yeah, I don't get it. I don't get how those can pass. If we truly have a Food and Drug Administration that's supposed to make things safer for us, how can shortness of breath or death be an acceptable side effect?
The FDA is corrupt.
And I think we're going to find out even more of that if RFK Jr. gets confirmed, for sure.
I mean, I have my fingers in the health world. I can tell you there's multiple cures for cancer of multiple varieties. Asthma is an autoimmune disorder. That's something most people don't know. Autoimmune.
Yeah, I
Just
didn't
like
know that.
fibromyalgia. It's overcomable. I mean, that client that went through my program with fibromyalgia called me in tears because she made a fist one day. She hadn't done that in years. She's hiking the mountains in North Carolina and Virginia where she used to not be able to walk up the steps because the
Yeah, because
inflammation was running rampant in her body.
and it causes tons of pain, from my understanding. I've known some folks with fibromyalgia, and
So much.
especially when they have a flare up, right?
Yeah.
It's even worse. Yeah.
So that questionnaire is going to go into what you eat, how you eat, when you eat, and everything to do with your bodily functions.
Yeah. So would you take, like you said, medication, your habits? Are you going to, on those questionnaires, you ask things about like your activity, things like that as well?
Describe your typical day. Describe your non-typical day. Describe 1 week's worth of your sleep cycle. When you went to bed, when you woke up, how many times you woke up in the middle of the night. What state were you in when you woke up? Were you creaking and popping? Did you get up with a bladder so full you couldn't see straight because you didn't wake up in the middle of the night? There's different levels of all of it. No two people are the same. But I'm going to go through your entire medical history. I want to know your mental history. I want to know your relationships, your community, your family, all of it.
Yeah, so you're really looking to get a full picture before you work with that individual.
I want that the words on those pages to build a full picture that I can see your life. So then I can grab this piece and go, okay, this is where we're going to start. And, I was someone in my mid-30s with arthritis already, and cutting back on the things that cause the inflammation has caused that to go away. Understand me. Everything has a cure. What are you willing to do to make it happen?
And I don't disagree with that at all, because I definitely know that after years of my life, medication is not the answer.
Yeah. I mean, a friend, former client, got cancer, and I said, okay, mangostein's your next thing you're going to source. Instead, they went and got chemotherapy. I washed my hands.
I mean, there's nothing you could do at that point, right? I mean, it comes back to the decision like of joining the program or going through with it. Even they could start with you, have 100% intentions, but it's got to be up to me. So
yeah, and I'm not saying everything I'm going to recommend is cheap and insurance is going to pay for your chemo. So some people go that route because of that.
Yep. Yeah, because to eat right and to live right, it's not cheap.
It's not expensive if you do it right. And that's part of my program, helping people understand that. Helping them find
helping them to source. And
yes.
Yep, because that's a big thing, because too, you could tell someone to go look for something, and if they really don't have any idea what they're looking for, they could get the wrong thing.
Yeah. And I mean, I am a proponent for living a longer, healthier life. And people say, oh, I don't want to live any longer if I'm living like this. Well, I just said longer, healthier.
Yes.
I mean, my grandparents were both dead in their 60s. My mom's 65, and I don't know how much longer she'll hold on. She didn't stop smoking until she was diagnosed with COPD, and didn't stop that until she had a flare-up and an attack that almost killed her. I refuse to be looking at my life going, oh, well, I've lived 2/3 of it now at 44.
Yeah.
My 44th birthday on October 16th, I said, if it doesn't bring me money, bring me happiness, or bring me peace, it can fuck off.
I like that. That's a good way to live.
And,
right.
I'll help those who want to help themselves.
And I think that's the key to it, really, for anything. I'm not just saying your programs and what you do with natural medicine, but anything we do in life we have to be willing to do it.
Yes. And, my health coaching program, say your mindset's right, you're ready to go. It's 12 weeks. And it's an hour to an hour and a half once a week with, a set number of emergency calls, and it's $1,500 up front.
Yep.
Because
But
I'm putting my heart and soul into this and my cultivated knowledge.
and this is one thing and I say this from experience because more specifically, my wife's much better than I am. She tries to live a very natural, healthy life, and you get out of it what you put into it. And you might say to yourself, $1,500 for a 12 weeks program sounds expensive, but isn't that worth the rest of your life to be happy? I mean, that's the way I look at it.
It definitely can be, but it's up to the individual.
It is. It is. And I understand that sometimes we might not have the money because whatever, we all have different financial situations. But in this case, I love the idea of being healthier. The whole RFK Jr. thing has got me thinking more about what I put into my body, starting to listen to my wife more, which I probably should have years ago. But, it's definitely, we're in this country specifically, I think we're at a pivotal point where we have the opportunity to go in the right direction. We got to grab it by the balls. I hate to say it, but we got to take it that way.
I agree. And you have to make that choice for yourself. Just like talking about how your wife, you should have been listening to her all these years. Maybe she hears this episode, like you said, maybe she'd want to. And she's like, okay, well, you need to go talk to him about this, this, and this.
Yep. I'm pretty sure that's a conversation we're going to have.
And that's great. But if your heart's not in it, and I'm not saying that yours wouldn't be, but just in general.
In general, yep.
I want to know your why. When you call me and say, this is something I want, this is something I am ready for, why? And if I don't hear emotion in your voice, I won't believe that you're even real about it.
Yeah, so if I come to you and say, well, I'm overweight, so that's my why. Yeah,
great.
I don't think that's going to be enough. But
no,
but I think there's got to be more passion to it than that, though, right? I mean, because you could say you want to lose weight, but
why do you want to lose weight?
Exactly. And I think that's the big thing.
The underlying factor.
I think it comes back to what you said. If it doesn't make you happy, healthy, what was it you said again? Your decisions?
Happy, peaceful, or bring me money.
Yep.
And if it doesn't make me happy or peaceful, I don't want the money.
Exactly.
So
because then it's not worth it then.
I mean, if you're going to come into my life and you're going to have an impact on my life, just like I'm going to have an impact on yours. And if it's not one where that impact's going to enrich me, why would I want it? Why would you want it? I'm not everybody's cup of tea. I'm intense.
I'm not either. So
I curse. I get very passionate, and I will call somebody out faster than they can take a breath because they're being a damn fool.
And you know what? A lot of us sometimes need that. That's true.
You want to try the woke liberal agenda of you can't be mean to me. I'm going to tell you, well, good luck. There's no refund.
Yeah. I mean, when did being straight and direct turn into being mean?
Good question.
That's always been a problem in my adult career is that, I've always come, especially in a work life, I grew up with, I'm here to make a living and an earning for my family. And that's why I'm here. I'm not necessarily here to make friends or,
bingo,
do anything else. I'm here to make a living. And that's the job that I want. Now, if I make friends along the way, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that I'm not going to make friends, but
sure.
My job, I'm here to do a job that you paid me to do. And I'm trying to do it efficiently. That means I might be direct sometimes.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people would take that as being mean. And it's like, I'm not trying to be mean at all. I'm just telling you the facts. I'm just not sugarcoating it.
Yeah. And I like to cut to the chase. I don't want to have a 20-minute conversation for something that can be said in 2 minutes.
Exactly. I don't need to put a bunch of fluff around it to make everybody feel good. It's just, and I'm not trying to make people feel bad. I'm just very direct.
Yeah. I mean, even in my personal relationships, I'll say something and my girlfriend will be like, oh, that's awful intense. And then she'll think about it later. And she was like, well, it took me 3 days to get to the same point that you got to in 20 seconds. I guess I should have listened.
But hey, you know what? Everybody processes different too. I understand that. But yeah, it's being direct, especially in this type of thing, right? When you're trying to get your health back in line, being direct or intent, as you described as intense, I consider that to be direct and honest. I think that's the type of thing you need. If you're really in that shape that they come to you, Alex, for help, then That's what they should be looking for.
And,
because if they could do it on their own, they would have.
And the one question that I get quite often is, when would you go to a doctor? And my honest answer is, if I got in a car accident, I would want somebody to put me back together. But the hospital food is not nutritious. It's not going to help your health in the long run.
Being in the hospital period is not going to, they always say the hospital is the worst place for someone to recover.
Yeah. So yeah, if I experience extreme trauma to my body, I would want a doctor to put me back together.
Yeah. Which
I'm
makes
not
sense
going to go to a doctor to see him because I sprained my wrist. He can't do anything about it. It's going to put it in a splint.
It's got to heal on its own.
I'm not going to go if I break my toe, put it in a splint. Crack a rib, wrap it up. Well, same difference with getting your gut health straight. I'm not going to go to a doctor who takes a minimal amount of nutrition training in their schooling, who in this day and age can't keep up with their continued ed because things are changing so fast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right.
I mean, doctors get in there and they have their family practice and they do the same thing over and over and over. They don't do anything different because, well, honestly, because they've learned one way and that's all they know. I'm not saying that to hurt them in any way.
No.
But it's true. They learned the one way, and that's the way it's always been done, and that's the way it's going to be done, Sonny.
And quite honestly, a lot of us do that in our lives.
Yep.
We know one way to do it, and we just continue to do it that way. Could be a better way, could be a worse way. I mean, but we're creatures of habit. Back
to the men's group, one of the things I've learned is the way I would go about doing something, somebody else may go about doing it a different way. And one of us may have a shortcut that the other didn't know about. And it's amazing to just have those conversations and watch it exponentially expand.
Which you would think doctors would do that. They go to conferences with each other all the time, but it seems like, do they ever talk about how they treat patients?
Or do they actually talk to the patient? I mean, they go in, do a couple of tests, walk back out the door. It's the nurse practitioner that's doing most everything with you.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, if you see a doctor nowadays.
The nurse
nurse
practitioner is the one that you're seeing most often because the doctor's just there to look over the test results and give his opinion and move on to the next patient.
Yep. And it's unfortunate too, because people that do, like yourself, that do programs like this, or even functional medicine doctors. I know I worked with one, I used to work at the Cleveland Clinic years ago, and insurance won't pay for it. And it's like, but they'll pay for $5,000 MRI to see why your muscles are hurting, or they'll pay thousands of dollars in medication to help your symptoms, but they won't dish out $1,500 to make you healthier.
Yeah. I mean, 9 times out of 10, if you have muscle pain or if you have a headache, put a pinch of good quality salt in a glass of water and drink it. You're dehydrated, straight up. 99% of headaches, and I'm not talking about migraines. There's medical reasons for migraines that are beyond this conversation. But if you just have a regular headache, it's probably because you're dehydrated. Put a pinch of good quality Celtic sea salt or Himalayan salt in a glass of water, stir it up and drink it. You don't want it to taste salty. You just want it to be in there. It's going to help your body absorb it better.
That's awesome. That's good to know.
Stay away from things like Gatorade and sports drinks and energy drinks, because most of those have some kind of chemical that is not healthy for you. If it's not the sweetener, it's the freaking formaldehyde they want to put in some of this stuff.
They want to put everything in this stuff. I mean,
squeeze a lemon and add a pinch of salt. There's your energy drink.
There you go. Same thing, right? Only better.
Yeah.
Only healthier.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, there's little tricks like this that can change the way the world works if we just listen.
Yep. And it's people like you that take the time to get the education, read the books. And I mean, how much you read in a week, I probably couldn't read in a year, which it's amazing to me that you can read that much. I mean, I realize with your past, right? That's all you had when you were a kid, was just being able to read until you got out of those braces. And, even then you said, and it was a struggle because people probably knew you as the kid with the braces.
Yeah. And even in the Marine Corps, guys would have their lockers full of porn magazines, and I'd have a half dozen books that I'd picked up from the library the week before that I was getting ready to turn back in.
Yeah. Difference of what you do with your time. I'm sure yours was much healthier.
Oh, I mean, I'm looking, I've got a bookshelf above me here. I have my entire Florida room, the long room in my house that has bookshelves across it. And then I've got 48 Laws of Power and the Natural Cures They Don't Want You to Know About sitting underneath my desk right now because they were the ones I was looking at recently.
Yeah, I think my wife has read that Natural Cures They Don't Want You to Know About, and
Kevin
she swears by
Trudeau.
that book. Yep.
Yep. I'm part of his mastermind group, and it's a beautiful thing.
It's amazing what you learn reading. I haven't read the book myself, but I have heard excerpts from my wife and stuff, and it's just amazing the stuff that they talk about in that. And she's put a lot of that into practice, and I'll be honest with you, she's healthier than I am.
Yeah, well, sooner or later, you're going to decide your why is big enough to join her on that journey without necessarily doing things how she does them. Because I don't recommend men that are built like us worry with trying to eat a bunch of salads and things. You need good fat. You need good quality protein. You start doing that, you'll start dropping weight like you won't believe.
Yeah, not only that, protein is just known. I mean, it's a fact that if you eat protein, you're going to feel full longer too.
Oh, as a carnivore, I eat one meal a day. And
I can see that, yeah.
That might be a 10-ounce ribeye and 3 eggs, but that's going to be...
That sounds good to me. I'll take it.
That is the meal of the day, and it might be 2:00 in the afternoon because I put butter in my coffee in the morning to give me that little extra boost, and then turn around and I don't eat again except for that one meal a day.
Yeah, and that probably fuels you for the whole. Now, when you do like for you, because I know you probably wouldn't recommend that for everybody. You're gonna, when people come in, you're gonna assess them, right?
Yes.
And what their habits, what their daily life is like. But for you, so if you eat one meal a day, is that usually in the morning? Is that midday? How does that work for you? I'm just curious.
It's about 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
Really? So kind of like a midday.
Yeah, because one big thing in health that people just don't understand is when you're sleeping, your body has two options. It can heal or it can digest. So you need a good 3 to 4 hours after you eat before you go to bed if you want to heal while you sleep.
That makes a lot of sense. Because if not, all that energy is going to be put into digesting the food.
Yes. So, in my case, as I worked up to where I am now, if dinner was at 6, I didn't go to bed till 11. And that way your body has time to process. Now, the side effect of that is you may wake up first thing in the morning and it's more than pee you got to do.
Yep, I gotcha.
But, it's your body processing that waste, and you have the chance to heal while you sleep. And
that's good to know. I mean, I think that's a good takeaway for everybody, even if, they're not going through your program, just to get a good general knowledge of when they, at least they shouldn't be eating at least 4 hours before bed.
Yeah. Another part of my program has to do with what the term was coined biohacking. One of my mentors is Dave Asprey. He's the godfather of biohacking. And if you come to me and you're like, well, I don't know what I actually should be eating because, I've been eating the same diet because my dad did and his dad did. And you come, I don't know what's right for me, then we're going to start taking things out and start from scratch, adding one thing at a time back in to see how you react to it.
That makes sense.
And, from there, wow, okay, so at the end of the week, you've tried this, this, and this, and you've kept a diary about what happened each day. And you've tried eating 2 meals a day, you've tried eating one good one, you've tried eating 3 meals a day, you've varied on what you eat with those meals. And you come back and go, well, these 2 days I had more energy and slept better. Okay, cool. So let's work on that and extrapolate the data from that and expand on it. And, I had a chicken breast and some steamed vegetables, and I didn't sleep very well, and I felt kind of dry the next day. Well, it's time to add in some good fat.
Yeah, so this isn't something where you just sit down with your folks and just give them a plan. You're going to work on it together.
I mean, it's 12 weeks to get the right program in place for somebody, and then it's turning it over to them to do it unless they want the individual coaching thereafter.
And I don't want to say it's like trial and error because
It is, and
but
it
it's
is, and it
yeah.
isn't, because you're going to see, okay, I had this bunch of broccoli and my stomach didn't sit right, or and it's, it's something that you always growing up had a steak and a baked potato and some kind of vegetable.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That sounds like
And
a normal meal.
but that baked potato starch is turning into sugar in your body. So if you take out the potato, add some good fat, and maybe instead of broccoli, we go with some, I don't know, I'm trying to think of one of the vegetables I was recommending recently that was good, but maybe go with some turnips or a sweet potato instead. And wow, the difference in what you actually feel like the next day.
Yeah, that's pretty cool though that and I can see why it's intensive and you spend an hour and a half with your clients every week because you're trying to not just help them, but educate them as well.
Yeah. I mean, whenever we get into a good program and a good rhythm, I might go, okay, tell me about your best day this week and tell me about your worst day.
Mm-hmm.
For sleep, for diet, for all of it, Okay, what can we do to make that worst day better and that better day more consistent? And a lot of that is asking the questions of the client, because you know how your body reacted. You just need that extra little push to say, okay, I can do this.
Yeah, and I think a key, I'm hearing a resonating theme here, is that you need to be honest. If someone comes with you got to be honest with yourself, got to be honest with you. You can't be hiding things and saying, oh, no, I eat great every day when you're actually sitting in a corner eating ho-hos and a bag of potato chips every day. You got to
You're
you
not
got to
lying to
realize,
me.
yeah,
You're not lying to
exactly.
me.
You're
You're
lying to
lying to
yourself.
yourself.
Yep.
And I'm never going to call somebody out, because the proof's in the pudding. You're going to see the results. And if you continue to lie to yourself whenever the results are speaking very clearly, you haven't hurt me, you've hurt yourself. And
I agree with you. It's, again, like you said, you've really got to have a why, and you've really got to want to do it before they come to you, because it's not going to be easy,
I
especially
mean,
if you've been
the
on crap your whole life.
first conversation may just be spending an hour and a half getting to the basis of the why, and getting in there, and I'm asking the question again and again and again until it pisses you off, but you get real with me. And whenever that happens, breakthroughs happen. Your wife's eating healthier. You should have listened to her. Now you're looking at it going, maybe I should, but why?
Yes. Yep.
Have you considered the fact that she's going to outlive you?
Well, she says she's not, but
Yeah.
I tell her she says she's got 2 years left, but she's younger than I am because both her parents passed young. So,
well, see, there's a mindset problem right there.
yep. I told her, I said, the way you eat and the way you take care of yourself, you're going to outlive your parents for sure.
Yes, I agree, but mentality plays a huge part. I've seen a woman with no history of cancer and her entire family lineage say, I'm going to die of cancer, and she did.
Wow.
The mind plays
So
a
the
huge
mind does
part.
play a huge role, right? Yeah.
1,000%. She's got to stop pulling that bullshit card of saying I'm going to be dead in 2 years.
I agree with
Otherwise,
you.
I mean, I don't want to get into what your relationship's like whatsoever, but is she saying she's going to leave you behind? Because that's what's going to happen if she dies in 2 years. Does she want to leave you to suffer?
Who knows? She might. No, she might have had enough of me by then.
After 20 years, hey, anything's possible.
That's true. You never know nowadays.
But I am one that doesn't believe that's the case. But maybe she hasn't considered that possibility about how
That's
that makes you feel.
Good takeaway. Yeah.
One other thing, again, with the community aspect, I'm part of the Hernando de Soto Historical Society here in Bradenton, because, he brought disease and famine with his horses and pigs, but Hernando de Soto did come through this area, and so we honor the memory of who and what he did. And one of those things is in April, last week of April, we'll be having our grand parade that we put on through the streets of downtown Bradenton. And we are in the process of choosing our Queen's Court, where we literally send young girls that are 18 to 22 through etiquette classes and things like that, and give them scholarships to help them better themselves, usually in the field of nursing or childcare, things along those lines that they can make a career out of. But we teach them, we have an entire dedicated mothers and daughters that have come through that program that have become pillars of the community. And so we try to help in every way we can with donations to Kids for Beds, to the Humane Society, things like that throughout the year. But yeah, we're right now, if there's any men that hear this in my area, we are accepting applications. And it's something that you'll find the greatest love of the community involved with. A lot of business owners, a lot of former military, firefighters, and cops. So, I mean, it's a very active organization that
Nice.
helps the community.
Yeah, and that's
So,
great. I mean, anything to help a community nowadays, it seems like we're getting less and less of that. How could, for the parade or the historical society, how could they get in touch with either you or the society?
DeSotoHQ.com is
DeSotoHQ.com?
yes. Yeah, Hernando
Perfect.
de Soto Historical Society. If you look it up, the webpage has a picture of a bronze statue of De Soto on a horse.
Okay, excellent. What about Alex for you? If anybody, how can they contact you or find out about your programs, explore the men's group, or follow your journey?
My direct cell phone number, I'm going to say text me first because I don't necessarily answer calls where I don't know the number. 941-4267 will go directly to this Android because I had a iPhone try to blow a hole in me at one point when the battery swelled. So I'm an Android guy. Then email is A for Alex Rutland, as it's described on the screen, arutland5811@gmail.
Excellent.
I don't have a website. I don't promote outside of word of mouth. So it's going to be a one-on-one kind of interaction. And from there, we move forward.
Excellent.
I will tell you folks that number one thing is that your mind controls your reality. And if you want something, you can have it. You just have to do the work to make it. As Odin said, the gods are not here to grant wishes. They are here to support you on your journey. I believe that each and every one of us is that God. And the community builds a better future for all of us.
Well, we've come to the end of another profound journey here on Just a Dude podcast. I do want to extend a heartfelt thank you to Alex Rutland for joining us today. Your story of overcoming, transforming, and empowering others is nothing short of inspiring. From the battlefields to the coaching rooms, you've shown us what it means to live with purpose, resilience, and a deep connection to both ancient wisdom and modern life challenges. If Alex's story has touched you, motivated you, or you're curious about diving deeper into personal transformation, nutrition, or the timeless lessons from Norse traditions, please check out Alex's work. All of his information will be in the show description, as well as you saw it on the screen here. Whether it's through his health coaching, the strength and balance of brotherhood, or his unique retreats, there's something there for everyone looking to better themselves or those around them. Don't forget to subscribe to Just a Dude podcast or on your favorite podcast platform to keep up with all of our incredible guests. If you enjoyed this episode, we'd love it if you could leave us a review and share this episode with someone who might need to hear Alex's message today. Connect with us on social media for more content and join the conversation about living a life of purpose and growth. If you have suggestions for guests or topics, or if you just want to share your own story, drop us a line. Our email is in the show notes. Until our next episode, remember that your challenges are not your limits. They're opportunities to grow, to learn, and to connect with others. Keep pushing, keep learning, and keep being just the dude or dudette you're meant to be. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time on Just a Dude podcast.